China is in a major crisis. The republic of 1.4 billion people, the nation that is said to be the manufacturing hub of the world, only has oil reserves to last for 80 days. Yeah, you heard that right. 80 days before calamity breaks out.
As China's 80 days of oil reserves dwindle away, so too does their access to important imports via the Straits of Malacca, potentially leading to serious conflicts. With only 80 days left in its oil reserve supply, China faces an uncertain future when it comes to energy security. Risk to companies located in Sichuan, Dongting, and Poyang is increasing as water levels drop to dangerous lows, leading to power outages in the area. As well as this, due to its geographical location, China is highly dependent on the Strait of Malacca for access to imports such as fuel. A blockade of the strait would have devastating consequences for China's energy supply and could lead to serious conflict if carried out by another nation. It is imperative that action is taken soon in order to ensure that China can maintain a secure energy supply without compromising relationships with other countries or putting lives at risk. With 1.4 billion people and a reputation as the global manufacturing superpower, China is in a dire situation. According to an article by the National Energy Administration in Beijing, China only has 80 days worth of oil reserves. You read that right. That puts China in a very dangerous situation, which is leading to several disputes in the South China Sea, which China recognized. What does China's energy crisis have to do with fighting a losing struggle in the South China Sea, when Beijing also continues to send warnings to international ships and aircraft claiming to avoid these man-made islands? There isn't a day that goes by when you don't hear news about China and its fight with neighboring countries in the South China Sea, about who owns the area, according to another region. Therefore, you might be curious as to how it relates to China losing the South China Sea conflict and the current oil crisis. China has grown dramatically during the past 10 years. One of the world's main centers for manufacturing has arisen in China. One of the causes of this is the accessibility of affordable labor, not just in manufacturing, but across all industries. This increase is quick. China has had a fantastic 10 years with advances in science, technology, and successful space launches. China made up 2.2% of the global GDP in 1980. Today, it makes up 19% of the global GDP. Of course, manufacturing alone did not make China as wealthy and mighty as it is today. You should recognize the significance of oil's contribution to the growth of China's economy at this point. Reuters, Beijing, September 20th. According to a National Energy Administration (NEA) official, China has around 80 days worth of oil in storage, which includes the country's strategic petroleum reserve, oil storage at oil companies, and commercial inventories. Li Fulong, the NEA's Director of Development and Planning, predicted that China will finish building the second phase of its strategic oil storage facilities in 2020. According to NEA head Zhang Jinhua, the latest Saudi drone strikes won't have an impact on China's oil supply. China met its domestic oil needs when it was still viewed as a developing nation. The country's enormous oil reserves generated enough oil to meet demand. The South China Sea contained some reserves. China used to export oil to Japan due to its abundance of oil at the time. China's manufacturing market expanded quickly as a result. It resembled the modern industrial revolution in many ways. It changed from being an agriculturally oriented nation to a center of industry. Due to the rise in demand for oil, the population could not grow proportionately to the outcome. To give you an idea of the severity of the oil crisis in China, in 1993, the country required about 1.7 billion barrels of gasoline, but only 1.3 billion barrels were produced there. China began importing oil to meet the demand, and given the current situation, it is largely dependent on foreign oil. China is heavily dependent on oil imports, with 75% of its energy coming from abroad. To keep up with its population, which has millions of cars on the road and an industrial sector that produces everything from clothing and accessories to automobiles and aircraft. China imports oil from places including Arabia, Canada, and Africa. You can't rely on the industry and not anticipate the impending severe oil crisis, so in a way, China had it coming. China is thus paying a premium for its explosive industrial growth. China's electricity demand has increased significantly since mid-July as a result of the high summer demand for air conditioning. According to the National Energy Administration, residential consumption increased 26.8% in July, while overall consumption increased 6.3% year over year. According to the state-owned CCTV, a total of 19 provincial power systems have broken records for electricity demands. The China Electricity Council reports that usage increased again in August. As a result, power limitations have been put in place in a number of the Yangtze River's major industrial and commercial centers. Since authorities began keeping track in 1961, China has been experiencing its worst heat wave. Due to the severe heat, portions of southern China are experiencing a drought, which has caused the water levels in hydropower reserves to decline. Hydropower serves as a primary source of electricity in provinces like Sichuan and Yunnan. Companies are at risk during dry years, particularly those in industries that depend on continuous manufacturing, like Sichuan Specialty, electrolytic aluminum. Dongting and Poyang, two of the Yangtze River's major freshwater lakes in China, are at historically low water level and are predicted to continue to dry up. In the area, dozens of rivers and reservoirs have dried up. Without a doubt, Sichuan has suffered the most from power outages. This is due to the fact that hydropower accounts for over 80% of its electrical generation, as well as the fact that it has experienced catastrophic weather. In terms of overall electricity generation in China in 2021, the province came in 6th place. It is number 1 in the world for producing hydropower, followed by Yunnan. According to the provincial government, the drought reduced Sichuan's ability to generate electricity by 50% in August compared to the same month last year. Considering the energy and oil crisis, if a third world war breaks out, China won't be able to prevail. But there are numerous nations that will gladly provide a strong backup if some nations band together against China. However, China's geographical situation could prove to be a challenge for them. If China has a weak point, this is it. The route runs through Malacca, which is the strait that regulates the passage of practically all the oil that gets to China. The majority of the oil they import comes from other locations like the Gulf states, meaning it is brought to China every day. Because of how crucial this route is, roughly $3.5 trillion worth of international trade travels through these straits and across the South China Seas each year. About a third of China's total marine trade is represented by this figure. Over 66% of China's trade is transported through this one waterway, which is 1.7 miles wide at its narrowest point. Every day, 15 million barrels of oil and 33% of the world's liquefied natural gas transit across these straits. The issues start since it is not entirely under Chinese control and does not fall under their jurisdiction. The importance of the Straits of Malacca to the Indo-Pacific region's geography cannot be overstated. The two most powerful global superpowers, China and the US, are both dependent on it. But China's dependence is now almost a hindrance to its ambition, because the strait is the shortest sea route between suppliers in Africa and the Persian Gulf and their Asian markets. Through the Straits of Malacca, Saudi Arabian oil is transported to China's mainland. The issue now is that, because of its significance, this trade route is militarily weak and may jeopardize Beijing's energy supplies if one of its several energy states were to cut it off, because most of China's oil, much of their liquefied gas, and several exports come from the strait. Blocking the strait would be the best option for a siege. Once you cut off China's oil, it becomes a matter of time before they just crumble. This route has many choke points, so any tension that might lead to a military conflict would have the strait used as a battleground. China is heavily reliant on the Straits of Malacca for its energy and trade supplies. As such, it has become a military target because any conflict in this area could potentially cripple China's economy and disrupt its access to resources. The drought that has affected the Sichuan province has exacerbated this problem as it reduced Sichuan's ability to generate electricity by half. Therefore, if war does break out, the Straits of Malacca will be a key battleground due to its strategic importance for Chinese operations. It's clear that China needs to find a way to bolster its energy security if it wants to ensure the safety of its economy. What are your views on this? Will China be able to sustain this economic downturn, or is this just the beginning of the end for China? Let us know in the comments below. Do like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the bell icon to get notified when we post our latest videos. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.